Just a quick message before we leave for lunch. I will have a few things to say to everybody. Oh, and so near. Wow. Qu'est-ce que t'as dit, Hélène? C'est le nom de? Oh. It's because of you then.
No, you can say hi. I just say that. No, I think it's correct.
Okay, 1, 2. How does that sound? Does it sound loud enough over there?
A bit more.
A little louder? A little deeper in the voice? Yeah. Yeah. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Hello. Hello. What do you think? How's that? Is that just that a little too loud? It's a little too loud right there.
No, it's okay for
I hear
you.
nothing.
Oh,
Too loud.
not here.
It's echoing. Echoing. Okay, right about there. What do you think? If we just hold the microphone really close.
It's okay now.
Ding, 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 ding.
No, أنا قد واحد جوكو وده وسيء ناري جيت أوصلي يفتح هو نبي الناس تقول إسكان ولا تعوين لكن هو ده ده كلام ده كاري يكسر يكسر كأسكان كدراسة أنا يكين إسكان في هم ساعدة أنا شوي كسر كمان لكن هو ده زي جيني كنا كنا ده أنا أقوى ده من كسر أوبر السوق كسر السوق بس السوق أنا أجيب السوق أنا أقوى ده أقوى أنا كسر لكن هو ده يكسر كون أنا ده بس أنا كان يجيب لي ده هو أنا في أتجاه كم داوي أنا بس أنا بتكسر أنا كنيجا كم داوي أنا بس أنا أقوى ده أنا كورن أنا بس لو نسكانة أنا أقوى ده تكني ده هذا لكن هو ده أقوى ده أودي أنا لكن هو ده بنسي زي أنا ميتا مشكلة أنا كمان واجد لكن هو ده أصلا ده خارج من هذا لكن يكتب أنا تعبيني مشكلة واجد أنا داوي أنا هتسلم مثلا ده خارج كم داوي أنا هتسلم والبيئة أنا so as we're back again today, as we know that in the evening. It is not a closing. It is just signifying the end of that day. As each morning the opening is not like the big opening, and just symbolizing the back to the day. The opening was at the beginning, and we do not. It remains open all the way through. So these openings, the closings, the end of the day, beginning of the day, are just small formalities. So no need to go in depth on things or on the body with that one, unless of course if there was something that was really sticking out in our minds overnight, something that was really predominant, would really warrant more further examination in the body with that one. So anyway,
Okay, anyways, just to continue from where we were yesterday, before we continue with on the water, that if there is anything that was on anybody's mind overnight, anything that anybody, any questions or anything anybody needed to address, for those of you who have been following the up to the minute knowledge, so to speak, the things that we are detecting or the things that we are aware of. Some of you know then last night there was some information that was very crucial to the time frame that we're dealing with from, of course, 2012. As you know, what happened in 2017, that the ceremony that we did, that it was affirmed to us through modern science, identifying. We had only found out, I think, maybe about 6 to 8 months later, as to what took place on an astronomical level at the same time that we had done that ceremony. And coming from the creation story, we know that everybody shut your phones off. No phones, no. I want to hear that again. And if you're going to talk on the phone, go up front, Stone. Don't be standing right there talking on the phone. Uh, on that astronomical level, within the time frames from 2017, those of you, like I said, who have been following, you're not going to go all over this again, but there was occurrences that took place just recently, which was brought to our attention, that we seen last night. It was in the news. It's been in the news for a couple of days, but I just took the time to examine it more closely last night. And this is what we brought to everybody's attention about the 40,000 degree temperatures. That, as you know, as was related last night, that the surface of the sun's temperature is only approximately 4,000 degrees. And that's, we're talking about the photosphere, the surface, what you can see. Of course, with the core, it's a lot hotter. But the photosphere of the sun is only approximately 4,000, 4,700 degrees. It fluctuates, you can't give a constant on that. So it's basically an approximate. But when we consider that heat, the light of the sun, of course, is based on a temperature of a fire or a source to the heat. And when we consider the brightness of the sun, that it only takes at its surface a 4,000 degree temperature, then we can easily associate light with heat, or heat coming from light coming from a heat source, like a fire. As you know, when there's a fire, there's light. In the darkness of the night, of course, if there's a fire, the brightness is going to be predominant in the darkness. So we can easily associate the light of the fire, the light um, to a heat source. But with this 40,000 degree temperature, that this identifies that there is not a heat source, that there is not a fire as a heat source. So it's easy to deduce then that it is what we have been identifying about pressures, temperatures, and densities, that it is solely linked or solely coming from the pressure. And so we determined last night then, as the pressures are increasing, that they are at a fluctuating rate, as opposed to what science has detected before, then what we see is contractions. And as you know, within her mother as she is experiencing contractions. This is only at the end of her the birthing process when the baby is ready to be born now, that this is when the contractions happen. But as you know, contractions, again, it's linked to the inversion of all things. That when you know that internal you're having a contraction, that actually means external expansion. It is kind of like a paradox where one contradicts the other. How can you have an expansion through a contraction? On that level of basic physics, it doesn't really make sense. But when we consider the inversion in all things, then we can easily deduce then through these different astronomical occurrences that we've been observing that there is that she is now in contraction phase. And so, as we've identified that the month of August, from now until 2022, that this is where things are going to occur on the astronomical level. So, of course, anybody else who's not us, who's not following the ceremonial cycles, who aren't aware of the information from the Guyana Recital, then nobody else would understand what we're talking about. But the contractions now are happening at a quickened rate. They are down to, I think it's, what did it say? 8 days or 8 minutes? Or 8 hours. It's one of the two. One of the three, I mean. It's either 8 minutes, 8 days, or 8 hours. Easier. We'll find out later. We'll check it again at lunch. But regardless, the contractions are getting closer. And again, we know that this is happening within the 8 to 9 moon cycle. And this, of course, is dependent on the midwinter. When the midwinter is, of course, we're not talking about January 1st type of thing, which means absolutely nothing in the cyclical motions of Mother or of Sky Woman. Of course, we're dealing with the moons. So depending on the moon, when the first moon is, then of course we're looking from the 8th to the 9th moon. This is when all of these occurrences are going to take place, and as we all know, what it's going to culminate to in 2022. And so, again, just as in 2017 when we did that ceremony in the garden, there was things afterwards to affirm to us as to the level. And as we identified, of course, it was the end of the 25,000 year cycle, and coming into the renewal phase, that to even know of those cycles and to be able to still do ceremony stemming from law in conjunction with those cycles, and there is no way that we could possibly know of those things, that this identifies to us. It identifies to me. I don't care if anybody else comprehends what is being talked about, but it identifies to me that the Guyana Recital reveals entirely and completely not only what is from the small scale, but how it is extrapolated to the level that we are at and onto the waterversal level. That the entire waterverse is governed by those cyclical motions. And we can easily determine the cyclical motions by observing, quite simply, any woman. We observe her moons. She is revealing to us what is happening on the waterversal level. And so, if we observe the realities and we keep in mind law, then we will be able to see those realities extrapolated from what is happening in the individual woman to upon our Mother Earth, to our solar system level, right up to the great spiral of Sky Woman herself. And so, as we identified many times, that the Guyana Recital reveals to you, reveals to anybody, and absolutely anything that is within creation. If it's on the other side of the waterverse, something that you could never imagine what possibly may be there, then it is understandable, it is decipherable through Guyana Recital. And we know Guyana Recital is quite simply just the natural science of how creation has been formed, how it has come into being. If we follow that pattern, then there is no guessing on anything. There is only knowing. And there is not predicting, there is only, again, from knowing law, you can easily determine or easily deduce what will happen 10 steps from now, what will happen 10 years from now. Just as how in the Mayan calendar, how they were able to identify thousands of years ago a 25,000-year cycle and end up being more precise than even modern day computers. So, uh, um, centering oneself within the rest of that war to understand our mother is the key to understanding absolutely anything. It's not that the person has to be smart and know all the knowledge of the universe. Once whatever is revealed from the waterverse to us, then the ground Rasa will show us how to properly decipher it or how to properly understand it and fit within those cycles. And so last night was, again, just to relate to is this is where, again, in this time, which was in since 2017, that we are flowing with our mother's moons. And our mother's moons will reveal to us what is the reality in creation, not the fantasy and not the wrong path that all 7 billion people have been bamboozled to go down the wrong path. Not in that you can say abominative state that humanity has reduced itself to. There is no understanding within that. Again, the science within that is a deconstructive science, a deconstructive technology. And therefore, it can see it and understand it through breaking it down. But it is not conducive with it and cannot identify what it is, why it is, where it is. And so, again, as always, we give thanks. And as we identified yesterday within, I forget what wampum, but identifying the Adua, that within the longhouse, when the baby is named, that the uncle will sing the baby's name and sing to creation that my head is firm. I can trace my lineage all the way back to Sky Woman herself, and therefore I know precisely who I am, where I am, when I am. And when a person is centered like that, then all of their actions is not of trivial. It is not of a waste of that person's power. As we see that the power that the people have is their voice. And we've seen what those young people, when they're in the teepee here, and what they were expressing, they had found their power. And in this world, of course, it's next to impossible for people to find their power external. Anywhere out there, they will find a false path. They will not find the true path where their true power can be connected to and then therefore expressed. And so to remember that your power, to exercise it, this is your voice, that you do not waste your power. Again, if you were going somewhere in your vehicle and you depended on your vehicle, you're not going to, when you're putting gas in your vehicle, you're not going to pour it on the ground. You know that that would be a waste of your power, of your energy that you need to get where you're going. And so this is how we must conduct ourselves in all things. Temper our discourse by what was identified many times is that whatever the thought is in your head, stop it from getting to your mouth. Do not allow it to get out of your mouth until in your own head you play out the play out that thought. See where it's going to go. See if it is legitimate. See if it can withstand the test of the ground arrest of the door in the public arena. And you don't have to be in the public arena for that test. You do it in your own mind, and this way you will not waste your power. You will not be saying ridiculous things. You will not be speaking for no reason. You will not just be repeating yourself. You will be using your power to accomplish, to do, or to reach your goal, what it is you need. And so sometimes we see, as we found last night in the conversations we were having, sometimes we see that we are not in control of our own power, meaning our own voice. Something else is in control of our voice. So this is where, again, Diana Dusted Agor, focusing, especially while we are in this process, you've seen day after day that there are things that constantly arise that you have to keep saying, focus. If you listen, you would not say that, or you would not ask that question, or you would not, whatever. If the focus is there and we utilize our power, then we will be precise in our actions, in our discourse. We will not be saying things that are not within the sentiment of which we intend to convey. So you think of your sentiment, think of what it is. Don't just use the words that you are used to using, like you said, just blurting things out of your mouth. This is what all of humanity does, and it's a waste of people's energy, waste of their power. To weigh it out first. Again, it's not going to be nonsense. It's not going to be triviality. It's not going to be in the form of where somebody else is going to be watching you waste your power and know, or others will see that you are just wasting your power. So, anyways, this is things that was on my mind overnight. There is a little bit more to that about what's happening in the waterverse. Another study that was just released within the last couple of weeks was a mapping of the Milky Way. Also, they were consulting with each other if it was the entire waterverse, as much as what is known so far, or if it was just the Milky Way. But anyways, the mapping of it, they're identifying that it's twisted and it's warped. And when I seen that as the headline, then of course we all know what that is, but science doesn't know what that is. So all they can do is identify it's twisted and it's warped. What are we talking about for the last however long we're here now? What is twisted and warped? What is that shape? Anybody here know? The DNA. So they are beginning to see the shape of the DNA of Sky Woman herself. And so this is, as we said before, as it is on the realm of the very small, in the structure of our DNA, it is on the level that we are at, and it is on the level of the very big. So this is where we can easily, easily deduce or determine that, okay, our DNA is what makes us up. The total Wilson bear, protons, neutrons, electrons. Very easy to extrapolate this on the waterversal level and to be able to know and to know what science is looking at but is unable to identify. Again, this is because it's a reverse technology. So, anyways, there are things happening on that level, on the waterversal level right now, as it did in that cyclical moon period of the 8th to 9th moon, as it has continued actually since 2012. But as you know, as you're spiraling in, you're going to spiral out. So again, 2017 was that midpoint, and we know that everything that happened there is going to happen there. It is an exact duplicate. And so these things become easy to see, easy to detect and know what we are looking at, what is happening. Therefore, from there, we can then pattern our lives here based on what is happening simultaneously on the realm of the very small and the realm of the very big. It is a matter of us in the present time to bring ourselves into order with these things, with the knowledge and wisdom of the past, for us here in the present to live and to conduct ourselves in accordance with that law so that we are the current structure of DNA, so that the faces yet beneath the earth will be able to continue. As you know, under the current conditions, the faces yet beneath the earth will not be able to rise. There is, there is a stop being put to it. And this is what we are gathered to reverse, to stop. We are to stop what is being done on a negative level right from here, and from the individual level of the minds of the corrupted male dominant mentality right to the universal level, because the waterversal level because it is from the corruption of men's minds, the imbalance of male dominance that has spawned that cancer that man has sent out into the waterverse. So all of these things, everything what we are gathered here for is not to sit around and to listen to stories. It is to take very concise action on a very large scale. As you know, one person can alter the entire waterverse. And so this is what we are gathered for, to realign our minds, our hearts, within the cyclical motions, the cyclical patterns of the great body of Sky Woman herself, which is extrapolated down there to every level, galaxy, a solar system, a Mother Earth, to us, into the realm of the very small. We connect all these things. So if there is anything from, like I said from yesterday, we're going to pass the feather around. If you have nothing to say, do not waste your power. Don't just stand up and stumble over yourself just for the sake of speaking. If there is something you have, then now's the time. And if you want, just pass on to the next person. So,
You know, cycles here. After that, we don't have anything.
Can I go ask Vagina? My name is Asa. I'm the daughter of Barison, granddaughter of Leah. I would like to talk about something that we spoke about yesterday, and that I didn't took my voice. So we were talking about LGBTQ and what's happening in their choices to be, I would say, unnaturally on the opposite sex. Um, I want to add to all that the new, I would say the new ways that society, non-native society in general, reacts to different orientations, sexual orientations, or identities, and the division it occurs, and also the, I would say, the diluting of the natural ways. Also, in my sense, it also occurs because parents of those now homosexuals maybe were in a abusive relationship together, So the kids were witnessing, let's say, verbal violence, psychological violence, or even physical abuses, violations. So let's say a guy, little a guy would see that and would later become homosexual because he doesn't want to repeat what he saw, like is that abusing women and so on, or even abusing himself. Or we also see lots of homosexual women, lesbians, that were violated as baby girls, and now they lost all confidence on men in men, and they don't want that no more. Or even the example Stuart said, you don't, as a parent, you don't mind about having lots of kids and from different women, and later on those kids can grow up and fall in love with each other, and then when they know that, they don't want, like this girl just turned lesbian because her love of her life was when she found out it was her brother. So I'm just saying those kids um, react to whatever trauma they have encounter in their life, and this is like an exit to finally found a place where they can be existing in society now, is not addressing the fact that parents have to think before having kids, or before having kids with lots of different parents. So I think society now, non-native society, um, look away, don't want to take their own responsibilities in what is coming out now. For faces, yeah, beneath their problems of right now of their own selves, not being responsible of their own lives right now, can will affect their kids. So thank you again. Have a great day.
Okay, I gotta ask something. I think it's France. We can hear you choking and coughing your guts out over there. Do you think that maybe you could sit in the front if you're ill or whatever, because you can pick that up and hear that on the. This is what happened the other day too. Somebody responded saying all they hear is people choking, coughing all the while. And if that's going to happen, it's just blocking or hindering the process of why we're doing that. Okay, anyways, just to show something and about our power. Yesterday we were on subject. We were talking, and then we identified. Anybody's got anything to say? The fella went around. Elsa didn't speak, and then after we closed, Elsa wanted to talk about it. And this is where we say all the time: when the floor is open, that's when you're supposed to speak. But now, what we're talking about, I know that as we were talking about it yesterday, this morning, I couldn't focus on what you were talking about just now. and remember how it fitted into the subject of what we were talking about yesterday. So this is to exemplify when the floor is open and the fella goes around. If you do not take your voice, then just like was identified, if you're not present in council, you have no say over what was said. You can't bring the issue back again because here I couldn't focus. I don't know if anybody else what's your take on this, but I couldn't focus on what you were saying. I couldn't make the connections to what the subject was yesterday. So again, when the fellow goes around and the subject is on the floor, that's you got something to say, you say it. Don't sit on your power. Don't let it go by, because then whatever it is that you feel you have to convey, it's just not going to get to where you want it to go to. I know your position on things is where it's stemming from your background, and that of course you have important things to say on this. But regardless of how important it was, I'll tell you as the example here, I just could not follow what you were saying and make the connections to what was happening yesterday. So, okay, that being said, there is only one thing in there that I can address what you did say, and this is where we identified to uh, make the corrections when somebody is misrepresenting something. And this is where we identified about the terminology of LGBTQ, that here, that, and anybody, I'll say anybody should not allow this terminology to be utilized, that it must be corrected. It should not be LG, it should be LH. Because again, when you're talking about that grouping, you are the first thing you are talking about is a woman, and the first thing you are identifying is her sexuality by saying L, and then the second thing that is identified in that terminology is G. G does not identify a sexuality; it identifies an emotion. And so, when you know that you're speaking of a male, the first thing you're speaking of, a female, and you mention her sexuality, but when you mention a male, you don't mention the sexuality, that's an emotion. So this is where you can see that the true identity between the genders of the woman being the emotion is co-opted through this corruption. And so we should not fall or continue to perpetuate the corruption by falsely labeling, or just because it's labeled in a certain way, we should not accept that labeling just because that is the political correct thing to do. Politically correct thing. The correct thing to do would be the correct thing. And so if you're going to mention a woman and her sexuality by identifying L, and then you're going to mention the male, then you must be completely fair and identify that also of the male, which is the reason why from now on I say here our policy is not to say and to fall victim of that LG, but to mention the reality and the truth of that it's LH, because it's identifying the male as homosexual. So unless they don't want to be identified as homosexual, then they should not identify women when when they open with that terminology as L. They should not give reference to the woman's sexuality if the male is not willing to have their sexuality identified also. So it is a corruption, and it is an unfair corruption upon women, but also unfair upon everybody, because then we are not actually talking about are, what the subject is. So, anyways, from here on, this is what we suggest to everybody too. When you're referring to that terminology, do not perpetuate the lie of LG, but to speak the truth that is LH, because they're saying lesbian and then homosexual. Because when again the terminology of G does not identify sexuality, it identifies an emotion. I can be that emotion. I can be gay. It does not mean I am homosexual. And so, if we allow the co-opting of the meaning of a word to suit a special interest group, then we are corrupted ourselves. It is what applies to everybody, and what applies to everybody is that that word in English does not identify sex, it identifies that emotion of being gay. Anybody could wake up feeling quite gay this morning. It has nothing to do with sexuality, and this is the corruption of that terminology of LG. So from now on, here, if you're going to talk to in front of me about that, I am going to correct that, and I'm going to make this very statement every time somebody's going to say that in front of me. It is not LG, it is LH. It identifies homosexuality. Okay, so with that being said, we are going to continue. Does anybody remember where we were at? Where?
55.
Okay. So 55, we are still in official symbolism. As we go on, we're going to expand on to why official symbolism. This is not understood today in the average person's mind that there is official symbols, and these official symbols are of great importance in order for individuals to convey sentiments, to convey huge actions that have happened amongst the people, that there is symbolism, official symbolism to identify those things, which enables a person to pinpoint an exact sentiment and an exact an event that has happened in time. So 55, a large bunch of shell strings, in the making of which the united chiefs of the 5 nations have equally contributed, shall symbolize the completeness of the union and certify the pledge of the nations represented by the united chiefs of the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca, that all are united and formed into one body or union called the Union of the Great Law, which the Gunawida has established. Again, as you know, everybody had Onagordas. You know, as was related in the formation of the league, what Onagordas were utilized for. That again, it is utilized for keeping record. It is utilized to make contracts. It was again in keeping record. It kept record of such things as trade. And so, just to remind you that this on a border, that this is where we were on the precipice of going down the same path as the non-native world as commodification. This was basically our money, because this is what recorded in trade. Again, this year we traded 10 bushels of corn for 10 moose hides with the Anishinaabe. And so next year when we come back, we utilize this and we see the Anishinaabe only has 5 moose hides, and we have 20 bushels of corn. So we can see an imbalance there in the trade. And so this would symbolize that. Of course, there is not just, it's not just like this, but when there is a record of that, then it is it is created in that way that anybody could identify 10 moose hides, 10 bushels of corn. So whoever would have that would have a record of that trade, which was the verge of monetization. We were on that verge of doing that. It was Ayawanta that had made the sacrifice to take us off that path of commodification and to turn what in the non-native world is a real tool of money, but a corrupted thing, that here it turned it into a real interaction, where it isn't a commodification, but an interaction where we see, hey, last year you had 10 moose hides, we gave you 10 bushels of corn. This year you only have 5 moose hides, we have 20 bushels of corn. That, doing simple arithmetic based on commodification, Well, you know that you could this year. You might say, "Well, I'll give you less for those 5." But the reality is that when we seen such things through our record, then we actually seen that they were poor, and in seeing that they were poor, we gave more bushels of corn for less moose hides. So this is the opposite of commodification. This is where we were on the crux of corruption, the same way as in the non-native world. But the Onagordas are the things that are utilized as official symbolism to record such things. Uh, Again, that we were this close to complete corruption, as in the non-native world. So there is great symbolism in the Onagordas. Why would you doing that? Okay. This is to identify also that the 5 nations, as they came united. Why you break it up like that?
Maybe it's the wire.
No, and we got a lot of juice there. Oh no, the juice is going down. It's only 2 bars. Maybe we can get another extension. Okay. Yeah, we're losing it. Okay, this has to be plugged in. Okay. Yep, we're fine right there. Can somebody get another extension? Where's Stone? Okay, there's no sense in me continuing like this. We'll wait until this is resolved.
Il y en a une, là, orange, qu'on avait envoyée, là, de Gilles, là. Non, il y en a une. Elle marche pas. C'est le plus loin, on peut-tu l'amener vers le devant? Non, pas vraiment. À cause de... Oui, c'est ça. On a-tu une autre extension, peut-être, à Horizon Rouge? Non. Je vais en chercher. Une acheter une? Non, mais je vais... Non, il y en a. On y va tout de suite. Une barre, on a juste pris une barre. Ça prend de la longueur. Une barre, ça change rien. De la longueur, c'est ça. Il ne faut pas faire de miracle. Ben, en fait, le micro, il va quand même assez loin. Si on met un petit peu ici, là, il va très loin. Toutes les rallonges sont... Je peux pas l'avancer beaucoup. Faut pas passer dans le coin. Et là, on va juste comme enlever ce fil-là ici. C'est connecté. Ouais, mais là, Stuart, il n'est pas long. C'est ce fil-là qui est le plus fragile ici. Ouais. Testing 1 2 1 2.
Okay, so at the formation of the league, when the 48 chieftainship titles were first established, the chiefs had to not only furnish their own pledges, which was, as you know, was a way that the people had constant and direct avenue to correcting the titles, to correcting their political representatives. Whereas, again, you know, in the rest of the world, you have no way of even speaking to your political representatives unless you have money. And this is where you can see a direct correlation to the collective thinking process to here through the Onagordo. So the Onagordo here, which was the equivalent of on that side of the world money, but since we didn't go to monetization on your side or the rest of the world, the only people have access to politicians is people with money. But here, the Onagordo gives access to all the people to the political representation, and how people have access is through those 48 people, those 48 men that were established by the 48 women title holders of those titles, heirs of those titles. The males had to furnish a pledge, and that is, again, as you know, one span of the hand in length, and that is to identify that that was indeed their pledge, and that if any time you see a chieftainship title acting erroneously or out of order or contrary to law or the rules of the Great Peace, then you know that the person could grab their onagordo, can take their wampum. You can take that wampum and hold it up to that chieftainship title and identify this is your pledge, and you would hold it to their hand to show, to signify that it is their official symbol that they created, and that then you can utilize that pledge to identify these were your words, this is what you said you would do, did you not say this, and then you can identify your current action is contrary to law, but it's not just somebody being able to say, hey, you're out of law, you're out of order. And of course, it is something that must be substantiated within law, and it must be something that can withstand the test of the public arena. If it is not determined to be truth in the public arena, then of course that is just the individual's opinion, and the opinion has no access to this. Only law, which means again, all people must know law. This is the only thing that gives you access to that person's pledge to their onagordo. And so, you know that the chiefs had to furnish their individual ones that their clan mother would have, because their clan mother would be the one to first have immediate access and to be able to correct them instantaneously while there is the corruption. Again, not to wait 4 years till the next election or something of that nature. Anyways, it is not only that the chiefs were to create. There was a united wampum that they had created. Everybody had to have their equal share, their equal input into it. This is the circle wampum. And in the circle wampum, there is all 48 titles with presiding over, as you know, is Tadadaho. But the 48 all had their equal contribution to it, and this is to symbolize that the 48 are standing with their hands tightly bound together, protecting the people. Within that circle is the laws, the ceremonies, the clans, the names, everything exists within that circle. And therefore, as you know, anyone who is to any chief that releases their grip, of course, is no longer eligible to hold that title and is never asked again to hold that title or never again put in any type of position of responsibility or influence. Okay, so a bunch of shell strings is to be the symbol of the council fire of the Five Nations Confederacy, and the chiefs whom the council of firekeepers shall appoint to speak for them on opening the council shall hold the strands of shells in his hand when speaking. When he finishes speaking, he shall deposit the strings in an elevated place or pole, so that all the assembled chiefs and the people may see it and know that the council is open and in progress. This, of course, as you know, this is what that Onagoro is there for, and as was identified to use, whenever that is, whenever you see it, it is visible. It must be in a conspicuous place so that everybody knows it is not for somebody to come along and say, hey, shh, you come into order, we're in a council or ceremony or whatever. No, it is what all the people are supposed to know. It is you that is supposed to bring yourself into order. If you don't bring yourself into order, then somebody is going to say something to you. And when somebody says something to you, then it is not really you. It is not really your power that is doing that. It's not really you complying with law. It is a result of somebody else basically forcing you to when they address you. So, whenever we are forced or compelled to do something, of course, it is not necessarily against our will, but it is not within our initiative. And if it is not our initiative, it's not truly a reflection of us. And so the law identifies that the responsibility is upon the individual. It is not upon structure of supposed government to police you or to affect law into your life. It is you that must do it. Hence, the reason why we are in law recital is to how it must be in the world is that all the people must know their constitution, must know what all of them must abide by. In the non-native world, in the rest of the world, nobody knows the constitution of your country. Good luck to you if you try to find out, because you're going to find out that there is no constitution in any country on earth. As every country is a part of the corruption, a part of the imbalance, they can say they have constitution, but when you examine, you will see the corruptions and that it is not constitution. That it is just lip service that is paid to the people to appease them, to get you to believe that you are living in a free and just society. Okay, so when the council adjourns, the chief who had been appointed by his fellow chiefs to close the council shall take the strands of shells in his hand and address the assembled chiefs. Thus will the council adjourn until such a time as decided by the council. Then shall the shell strings be placed aside for safekeeping. And that's what you call basically a wampum keeper. You know, a wampum keeper does not carry any kind of title. There is not like a title of power there that you have influence or whatever. It is just quite simply that somebody is holding those onagordas. Just like now, I'm holding the onagordas. It does not make me any smarter or more connected to those things. All it does, or all the only function that's provided or that I am doing is holding those wampums. So those wampums are accessible to anybody at any time for whatever purposes. If the person just wants to look at it, anybody from the nations has the right to go to Onondaga and to say, I want to see that wampum. Anybody can see that at any time. But unfortunately, the way that today's religified mind is, the handsome Lakers, that it is not like that. They are hoarders today. They hoard things like the way in the non-native world you hoard information or you hoard money, power. Okay, at least every 5 years, a large recital of the great law of peace within the Grand Council shall take place. The united chiefs of the 5 nations and the people shall assemble together and shall ask one another if their minds are still in the same spirit of unity for the great binding law of peace. Each nation, represented by their chiefs, must address this issue in open council, clearly making known their position of continuance or abstinence. If any of the 5 nations shall not reaffirm continuance and steadfastness to their pledge of unity, then the great binding law of peace shall dissolve for that nation. and they alone shall have left the protection of the circle of the united chiefs with their hands so joined, forsaking forever their lineage to sky woman and matrilineal authority. And so what this means is you have been given the example of what happened with us. Again, I'll give reference to the final Grand Council in August of 1989. Now, we in this house here say the final Grand Council. Everybody else who remained part of that corruption, they still maintain that they have Grand Councils. They still maintain that they're within their nations. But if somebody points out to you, like right here, right now, if we say what we are doing is illegal, somebody steps forward and says this is illegal and states the reason why. Now, if it is not addressed, and if it is, of course, um, uh, if the charge is true, if it can be substantiated, then that means the rest that are ignoring the charge or ignoring the claim, that they are outside of that law, because if they do not address it, the purpose of counsel is so that if anybody has disputes, that you present it in counsel and the dispute is addressed. If the dispute is not addressed, it shows a corruption of the people who are not addressing it. And so what happened in 1989, upon our complaint in that council, that council was then illegal, because as you know, that no Grand Council is legal unless all 9 Ganyangahaga chiefs are present. And also, no council is legal once the Ganyangahaga have protested against it. And so we go back to that final Grand Council of 89, August 89, that this is where we protested against it. We said no, they did not have the right to stop the Grand Council. We protested against it. They did not address it. Makes it a double breakage of law that they continued in their corruption once the Ganyangahaga protested against it. And not only did they continue, but they did not address what the charge was that was put forward. So this is where you can see the example of where the origins of the Great Law of Peace, the 5 nations all together jointly decided to break law, to step outside of law. And so this is the reason why I say to you that you have to act like nation. Each individual has to be the nation. You got to be, if you claim to be this or that, whatever, you claim to be a so-called Canadian, you have to be the nation. You have to represent all your laws. You have to make sure that all of your policies are whatever you are the one that has to make sure that it is represented by you every day. Now, if it isn't, then to your nation, of course, you are corrupt. And so this is where we were in 1989 in August, the reason why we identified that it was the last legal Grand Council. Now, if it can be a last legal Grand Council by people who have been within the Great Law of Peace for over 2,000 years, and they can break it, they can step outside of it, then imagine what you are adopting. If you claim to be adopting the Great Law of Peace, then it will be just as hard and harder for you. Again, this is why we say focus, pay attention, do not speak out of order, do not waste your voice speaking for no reason. Do not stand up to say, oh, I agree with everything that they said. That's a waste of your voice, a waste of your power. Whenever there is a waste, it is like a machine with unnecessary moving parts. If you have unnecessary moving parts in a mortar or a machine, then you know it is destined to break down. Like anything, you streamline it, you get it to its lowest common denominator. You do not add anything else into it to complicate the issues or to complicate the machinery. You go based on the lowest common denominator of application of law, and from there you apply law, and this is where the individual can and will represent nation, will represent law. If there's anything on that, that was the end of that wampum. If there's anything anybody wants to address. If not, we're going to move on. Okay. As you've seen, every 5 years, there's supposed to be a large law recital. You know that, well, right now, this is a law recital. But, as you know, this is not within the 5-year cycle of what has been applied since the beginning of time. This is, of course, special request. And as it is out of the 5-year cycle, it does not adjust the 5-year cycle. The 5-year cycle doesn't start again from here. No, the 5-year cycle remains the same. And this is how we were able to conduct a ceremony based on a 25,000-year cycle. What year was it? 2017. That we were able to do this based on what was happening on the waterversal level, on the galactic level. Things were occurring at the same time, instantaneously, as to precisely what the ceremony was that we were doing here. And this is because of, from the time of the establishment of the Great Law of Peace, that the law recitals measure not only give us our knowledge to law, but actually records time for us. And so every 5 years brings us to where we were in 2017, working on that level of intergalactic renewal, as we know that what is coming up again in the 8 to 9 moons cycle, but also what is going to be coming up in that time frame of so-called 2022. So every 5 years, maintaining that, whether or not the person is aware, they are aligned with cyclical movements here upon our Mother Earth, within our solar system, within our galaxy, within the waterverse, within the body of Sky Woman herself. So if you are, let's say, a molecule in the body, if you're a molecule in the knee right here, well, you're a molecule in the knee of the body, and therefore you are subjected to the cyclical movements of what is happening within the body. Just like a baby that is being formulated in the womb of a mother, there is a feeding time. There is a time where the baby's excrement is being removed, taken out. If the baby isn't aware or doesn't think of, hey, it's feeding time now, and the baby doesn't get there for the food, then the baby goes hungry. So knowing cyclical movements and being in sync with them is of the utmost importance, even if you are not aware of what it is, what it means, or why you're doing it. You will be automatically aligned with the natural things within creation that have formed us, that form and control and govern everything within the body, within the body of Sky Woman. So very important to know when that 5-year cycle is. Of course, everybody else does not know. Everybody else does not carry out law recital. As you see right now, it's people are saying there's law recital here, law recital there, but they're all doing it at this time. That takes them out of the natural 5-year cycle. So, anyways, anything on that? If not, we'll continue. Okay, next one from 56. Some of you may have noticed that there was a jump in the wampums, that we actually missed wampum 54. It's because in this particular book there's corrections that were being made, and that there was just the number that of the wampum that was not in its proper place. So regardless, anyways, as you know, that when upon the completion of the translation back into Ganyangeha, that all the corrections to the written text will be done, and everybody will have access to that. But it doesn't change the fact of everything that's been spoken of anyways. Okay, 5 strings of shell tied together as one shall represent the 5 nations. Each string shall represent one territory, and the whole a completely united territory known as the Five Nations territory. And so this is the Onagorda that you see here. This is the Five Nations wampum. This is, as you know, again, in 2017, in accordance with those cycles, as taught to us by the 5-year cycles of the law recital, that we knew that it was time to call all the titles. There was roll call. All titles called back, and all 5 great houses were called back here to the foundation. The foundation, which is the Ganyangahaga, that we had to call back all 5 great houses. And so all 5 great houses and all 48 titles are now lodged here as a result of the corruptions of all the other nations breaking the law, rendering them rendering themselves outside of law. And as you find out, when they are outside of law, everything that was once theirs is no longer theirs. Is they compromise it, they give it up. Five arrows shall be bound together, very strong, and each shall represent one nation. As the 5 arrows are strongly bound, this shall symbolize the complete union of the nations. Thus are the 5 nations united completely and enfolded together, united into one head, one body, and one mind. They therefore shall lay beneath the earth. It is the greatest wrong for any individual or nation to remove themselves from the great binding law of peace. The chiefs of the confederacy shall eat together from one bowl, the feast of cooked beaver's tail. While they are eating, they are to use no sharp utensils, for if they should, they might accidentally cut one another, and bloodshed would follow. All measures must be taken to prevent the spilling of blood in any way. Now, the reason why that's mentioned there about the bloodshed is, don't forget that the day before we were at war with each other. The next day, we got to be at peace. As this was identified in the formation of the league, that if it was us, just imagine yourself as that we're all at war. Yesterday, you killed somebody in my family. I killed somebody in your family. So we don't have the best relationship. And just because we know that we have to come together in peace isn't gonna erase those things. It's not gonna be gone. It takes a while for those things to be gone. So what the people had to do is to break out of law, to come out of male dominance, and to come under the authority of our mothers into matrilineal law, is that the males who were at war had to force themselves to sit together. And if you got to force yourself to sit together, then there is a possibility. Imagine right now if the United States, Russia, North Korea, Venezuela, if they all sat together, there's adversarial relations there. And if they were to eat dinner together and to use a sharp utensil and one of them were to get cut, that it could very easily erupt into a negative in as far as bringing those nations or peoples together in a peaceful way. And so this is the reason why it is mentioned. Do not forget, this is over 2,000 years ago that we pulled our heads out of the darkness of corrupt male-dominant war, the Dark Ages, which the rest of the world is still locked into those Dark Ages. To do so, obviously, if the entire rest of the world is still locked into it, it is a very hard thing to do, to pull yourself out of the Dark Ages. And so it was a very hard thing for our people to do it. And so at that time, provisions were made right at the flashpoint of where there was war into peace. Provisions are made to keep war, to keep peace. Sorry. So in today's terminology, or where we're at today, it may seem or sound kind of like maybe not really applicable in today's terminology to say, oh, we eat from one bowl and we're not to use utensils, sharp utensils. You might be thinking, well, okay, today, how are we going to do this? When you think of state dinners now today, that they're all big, lavish events, silverware, cutlery, beautiful plates and stuff like this, So it kind of, you might think, well, that kind of doesn't, it's hard to wrap your mind around it today. But at the time, in the Dark Ages, which is again, despite of no matter how nice their cutlery is or their plates are today, they're all still stuck in the Dark Ages. So as long as they don't have provisions of how to get out of the Dark Ages, then the Dark Ages will prevail, will remain predominant as to where you are now today. No matter what, you are still uh, subjected to the crazy insanity of what was the imbalanced male dominant warmongering mind for thousands of years. This has been the impetus to everything you do, as it still is, regardless of you sitting with each other and thinking you're in relative peace and that you get along. The fact is very different. Your reality is very different. If this was the case, why, again, do you make nuclear weapons? Why do you even manufacture weapons? What kind of insane society allows weapons to be manufactured? What kind of insane society manufactures nuclear weapons? Even much less even just nuclear power. This shows you that the non-native people are still stuck with their heads up their rear ends in the Dark Ages. Still war. And when you consider what was the conditions of Dark Ages, let's see if we ever actually got out of it. Conditions of Dark Ages was what? Disease, famine, pestilence, of course, war, which means the lowest level of human interaction, the most corrupted, the abominative human interaction, slavery, sexism, the Dark Ages. When did those things stop? Did they ever stop in the non-native world? So what you don't realize is that today, when you're talking about history, you're talking about Dark Ages being way back in history sometime, maybe around the 700s or 1100s to 1400s, no matter where it is, you're thinking that it's somewhere a long time ago in history, where it is not. It is present. Dark Ages is whenever the people are in war. And so in the non-native world, your Dark Ages never ended. You are still within it. And if you can properly assess your circumstances and accept what the reality is of your circumstances, the whole world will see. But yeah, you're in Dark Ages. If you're in Dark Ages, you would know then what you have to do. You would know what the corruptions are. You would know, you would be able to take action against those things once you are able to identify, and then you can plan a course of action of how to deal with those corruptions. So first step is, of course, acknowledging in the non-native world that you are still in the Dark Ages. Okay, if there's anything to be said about this, if not, we'll continue. Okay, where was I? Oh, okay. The chiefs of the Confederacy, the United Chiefs. Again, we're going back to this is when the Gunawida had the people united and is now reciting to them the laws of the great law of peace. And so right then and there, this is where we are in that time. Yesterday we were killing each other. Today we are sitting here talking about the laws of how we're going to come to peace. And it's identified that all the United Chiefs shall eat together from one bowl of what? What is it that was identified there to eat? The beaver tail, cooked beaver's tail. Why? Why is that identified? There is a lot to understand about the beaver tail. Now, when we consider in the human body has your bloodstream, as you know, there's over 60,000 kilometers or miles of blood vessels in your body, and it takes a single blood cell under a minute and a half to leave your heart and to come back into your heart. Just a minute and a half to travel over 60,000 miles. Imagine, that's very fast. Anyways, we did, just as a side note, we did a little bit of arithmeticating in that area to conclude what is the ratio of the blood traveling through the body in relation to the speed of light. And I think we approximate to 1/50th of the speed. You remember, Edith, what yeah, it was only an approximation because we were only doing it together off the top of our head while we're doing the moon teachings. There was a woman present who was a mathematician, and so we were just top of our head arithmeticating. And that's where we come to this approximation of that the flow of blood is 1/50th the speed of light. Approximate. That may not mean anything to you right now, but in the expanse of the 20 of the thing that we said about what is being revealed to us right now about the temperature of what is being shown to us from the contractions is 40,000 degrees. When you compare the photosphere of our eldest brother, the sun, being approximately 4,000, again, that's a 10-to-1 ratio. Where else in the recent time frame of which we're talking about, where else did we see a 10-to-1 ratio? Anybody? In that object that came into our solar system, which they don't identify as anything except just something that was floating through space. All scientists on Earth have failed the people of Earth by not addressing what this object was. To be 10-to-1 is an impossibility. It is basic common physics. A 5-year-old can tell us that a 10-to-1 shape is an impossibility. It goes against the laws of hydrodynamics. So all you got to know is the laws of hydrodynamics, and you're going to know that a 10-to-1 shape is an impossibility. And so, but we see a 10-to-1 ratio popping up in many things. And so the 10-to-1 ratio pops up in time frames. And so you can know how to break down, just like the way you break down hours you break down a day into 24 hours. You break down the hours into 60 minutes. You break down a minute into 60 seconds. Well, the ratios are corrupted because you start from a corrupted ratio of 12-to-1 as opposed to 13-to-1 because of Gregorian, because of male dominant religion. You step outside of the natural cycles of creation, meaning 13-to-1, and you reduce yourself to 12-to-1, which means that when you are then trying to break down or extrapolate to the large scale, when you're starting from 12-to-1 as opposed to 13-to-1, you're never going to get to your destination. You're never going to align. It'll be like driving a standard and just grinding your gears all the time. You're not going to get your gear into position where you expect it or want it to go. Anyways, the cooked beaver's tail. The purpose for this is, again, through the bloodstream, that you know that, well, the blood needs to go to every part of your body. So there is, on the microscopic level, something occurring in your body that you cannot see and what science does not identify. That where there is something that distributes. Like if there is, let's say you live in the city. Well, how do you get your hamburgers? Well, there's a big tractor trailer that comes into the city. It goes to the depot, and from the depot, they dump off all their hamburgers, and from that depot, it goes to each store, and then each store from there distributes to you. So there is within your body a mechanism that plays that role for the blood, for the oxygen, and this also is you can extrapolate that from yourself to the body of our Mother Earth. This is where the beavers come in. The regular flow of the bloodstream, as you know, the water. You can have a river flowing, and you're going to have life in that river, but it's going to be limited because it's flowing. It's not in a distribution mode. Just like you can't get your hamburgers on the freeway out of that truck that you see is delivering those hamburgers. You have to have a depot, and then from the depot, the one that distributes. You got the individual retail store, so to speak. Well, this is where the beaver comes in, that they provide or they perform that mechanism within the body of our Mother Earth on the same level that you, of the very small, that distributes your oxygen through the blood to your body where it is needed in each individual part of the body. It's needed here, it's needed here, 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 here. It's needed all over the place. There's distribution all over the body. And this is, again, with the river flowing by, it's limited. The beaver comes along and it creates its dam. And that dam causes the blood to back up. And you know what it causes? It causes it to pool, and the pooling causes medicines to grow. Medicines to grow causes bugs, causes smaller animals, causes bigger animals to come to the water. It's a fresh water source. It's a safe place. It's a gathering place for creation. And so this is where health comes to the body. Diversity grows there, and it brings a strong health to the body. Oxygen is brought to the body that way. And the beavers perform that function. Now, their beaver tail is a very is identified very specific because the beaver tail is how they perform this function. You ever see beavers building their dam? Well, they'll put the sticks there, and then they'll put mud and they'll slap it with their tail. Okay, that's a physical action, and you might not see anything in that of the beavers slapping their tail. You won't think anything. But that beaver tail is designed specifically for that. And a function that's designed for or a mechanism that is designed for a specific function in the body means that that mechanism is conducive in a natural way with the power that will flow from it. It will not flow from it if not for that reality. You take, for instance, otters. Otters also in the creation story, but otters cannot do what beavers do. They do not do that upon the land to cause that. They are not the mechanism to cause the waters to back up, to cause poolings and stuff like that. All they got is their small hands. You know, they're not going to build those things. The fact is that there is only one that does that, and it is the beaver, and it is through their tail. But the tail also carries another meaning, not another meaning, another function. Of course, there's the practical function of them building, but then any of you who are ever around beaver dam, if you're as a human, of course, the beavers would be aware of you, and you would frighten the beavers, and the beavers utilize their tail in that motion to warn. Slapping their tail, that is a motion that is instantaneously affected through something that we all know is very real. What we experienced in 2017 in that ceremony, which we were affected on the intergalactic level, on the level of the waterverse, is that we were instantaneously affected by a gravitational wave millions of light years away, when those in that binary star system, when the two neutron stars finally collapsed into each other, releasing that power, that energy, we felt the gravitational wave here on Earth. It was detected within that time frame of the 5-day period at the beginning and the end. So again, those of you who know, who are up to speed with all these things, you know what these things mean, what we're talking about. But we're not going to go in depth to continue to explain every single time. But we hit in general. Those of you who have the knowledge, the information, you know where the generalities are applying to. And so the beavers, when they smack their tail, there is an immediate gravitational wave that is felt instantaneously all throughout wherever that beaver dam, that beaver pond is. If it's as big as the quarry, then it is immediately felt from one side to the other, from the top to the bottom. Everywhere is instantaneously notified as to what the beaver is doing in warning. Who is the beaver warning? All creation. There's deers that are there. The deers are just drinking. They're going about their deer stuff, and they hear the beaver tail slap. The deer will stick its head up. What is that? It's the early warning system for the deer. It's the early warning system for all things, even the wolves. Even though the wolves are at the top of the food chain managing all of that stuff, as the distributor also in other ways, but even the wolves are notified to something. If they are the predator there that the beavers are warning of, then that tells the wolves that, they got to be more stealthy, more quiet, more whatever, if they want to accomplish whatever they're there to accomplish. But it also tells all the other creatures. It tells even the insects. It tells the fish in the water, of course. It tells the insects above the water. It tells all the other animals that are present. It tells the trees. It tells the roots. It tells everything, all life. Just like you may not have to have ears on your forearm, but you know that there are things that you feel, that you sense, that causes the hair on your forearm to stand up, causes the hair on the back of your neck to stand up. You don't have ears there, you don't have eyes there, but there is something that is being communicated to you and something that your body can detect. And so on the body of our mother, where those beaver dams are, that everything knows that they are gathering because of, as a result of, those beavers. And so everything knows that when they hear a warning from the beaver, that is a serious warning. It is not something to just overlook. If you're a deer and you're at the water and you hear that happening, you're not going to overlook that, because that's going to save your life. And all things within creation are aware of this on that level. It is only us, people, who have become stupid by removing ourselves out of the matrilineal authority, the knowledge of the cyclical motions of our Mother Earth, removing ourselves from that and locking ourselves into the corruption of the warmongering mind of male dominance. This removes all natural knowledge from us. We are rendered as stupid. Hence, all the people of the world being in this reality of outside of the cyclical motions and in male dominant warmongering mentality, the whole entire world is rendered as stupid. It is a self-inflicted stupidity when people participate through the schizophrenic mechanism of democracy. When people do this, they subject themselves to the schizophrenic mind, and the schizophrenic mind is an imbalanced mind that knows nothing about its surroundings, its place, knows nothing about what it is, who it is, or where or when it is. And so, again, when law is recited, the person does not have to have these things in their own mind, as long as it's in the collective psyche of the people. Like we said, there is a neural network between us. There is the original uh, uh, internet. That original internet is what we are all connected to, our neural network, the neurons that fly between us when we are communicating, the neurons flying between us that are influenced by the trees, influenced by the color of the grass, influenced by the bird flying over us, influenced by all natural things in creation, as we are an extension of those natural things. When we separate ourselves again from those cyclical realities, and we stick our minds up our rear ends as a result of the corruption of male dominant religification, we separate ourselves from true knowledge in this world. We become aliens upon our Mother Earth. If there's nothing about this, so it's because of that, which the work of the beaver tail, what it does in building and in warning. So there is intrinsic into that beaver tail the molecular structure of it being created specifically for that, to interact with other molecular structures in creation, means that the molecular structure of that beaver tail carries with it, inside of it, that sentiment, that purpose, that meaning. So there is knowledge to build, to work conducive with creation, and there is knowledge within it on a law level of to warn. So it's a knowledge of law. This is the reason why that the beaver tail is the feast that the United Chiefs are to share together, to feast upon from one bowl. If there's anything on this, if not, we'll move on. So, like was said in all things here, if you focus, you, not somebody else, if you focus, you can get a world of knowledge just from one pine needle on that tree. If you focus, you can get a world of knowledge just from, as you know, the turtle shell, where you can see the twins. You can get a world of knowledge. You can know of the calendar, you can know of the clock. It depends on the individual. And so, focusing, paying attention, you can be 100% certain that anybody else talking about law and talking about whatever, they'll talk about the cooked beaver's tail, you know, but they do not have access to the knowledge of what is truly behind that. The only people who have access is you have to come from that continuous, unbroken bloodline of the longhouse. If not, like was said, you'll never see a leaf growing right here. A leaf will not be there. A leaf has to be connected to a twig, which has to be connected to a branch, which has to be connected to the trunk of the tree, which has to be rooted firmly into the ground. The leaf will never be there on its own. And so when people are victim of like what happened in 1989, that everybody puts themselves out of law, the young ones nowadays can't come along and expect to be that leaf just floating there in the sky when their elders already hacked away at their roots and chopped their trees down. So, anyways, you pay attention, you can extract a world of knowledge out of absolutely everything that is at our fingertips. We are in the world's biggest library, the Waterverse's biggest library. From here, we can understand the rings of Saturn. From here, we can understand our grandmother moon. From here, we can understand the cell of our solar system. We can understand what is on the other side of the universe. We are in the world's biggest library. Only thing is, nobody knows how to read these books anymore. Everybody has been locked into, again, having their heads up their rear ends as a result of this religified mind of male dominance. So there is a way. Focus, pay attention. Whatever is being said, wrap your mind around it. Let your mind expand beyond it. If there's one little thing that you know that you can add to that, that is factual, that can be substantiated in the public arena, then you have all the information that is there, and then plus one more little bit of information. This is the evolution of the human mind. Okay, next wampum. It's wampum 58. No, I think. Yeah, it's shifted around back and forth. These what's written here, but anyways, like we said, all of these wampums will be put in their the numbering will be corrected. There are now the united chiefs of the 5 nations, standing with joined hands in a circle. This signifies and provides that should any one of the united chiefs leave the council and the confederacy, his deer antlers, the emblem of his chieftainship title, together with his birthright, shall lodge on the arms of the united chiefs whose hands are so joined. He forfeits his title, and his deer antlers fall from his brow, but it shall remain within the circle of the Confederacy. So anybody holding that, they break the law, they can still be holding this because, again, the law isn't where there's going to be a cop that's going to come along and give you a ticket or pull you over and say, hey, you just broke the law and you got to go to court on this day. No, it's a matter of self-application. And to apply law to oneself, you have to know law. And not only that, you have to know how to apply it. So law is there, but knowing how to apply it is diplomacy. That's politics. So the individual, their politics, is never like the way that you see it in the world, where it's an external thing, where as it's external, directed over there, it's adversarial. Politics is internal. It's how the individual maintains themselves, manages themselves within the complex environment in which we live in. So it is not a matter of like being like the way politicians are in this world today. They're elephants in a china shop. But that is, of course, certain destruction. That is, no matter what. Eventually, all that you care for, all that you value will be destroyed by such behavior of what is known today as politicians. So, again, individual politics is inside of you. It's not anything that you're going to see external. That is the corruption. It's inside. How you manage yourself, how you maintain yourself in relation to everything that is external to you. So everyone is a diplomat. If you are not, you are a poor politician. And if you're a poor politician, you are just a dumb person. Okay. Okay, this is also to mean that this, again, this is the power, as you know, what was identified. We're not going to go back into that. But what is identified in this, if the person steps outside this, no matter what, even if they take it with them, it does not go with them, because the power of this remains. Like if you say, this is the constitution of our nation, if all the people in the nation break constitution, doesn't mean anything. Constitution still remains. It may be an unseen thing at a certain point, undetectable to anybody, but Constitution remains, which would mean that at any time the faces yet beneath the earth may rise and pick up that thing, and they can rebuild the truth of creation once again. But of course, that would be, if there was a breakage, it would be under emergency powers, under emergency conditions. And you all know emergency provisions are talked about and identified. A further meaning of this is that if at any time any one of the United Chiefs chooses to submit to the law of a foreign people, he is no longer in but out of the Confederacy. And persons of this class shall be called, they have alienated themselves. Likewise, such persons who submit to laws of foreign nations shall forfeit their name, their clan, the union of the Great Peace. So for over 2,000 years, there have been names that have been passed on officially within every clan. You could carry that name. It is not yours. Just as for me, this body is not mine. It is given to me by my mother. This heart, the blood, is not mine. My grandmother gives me this. My is not mine. It is given to me, loaned to me by Sky Woman herself. To be able to fit into this creation and to be able to be conducive to that creation, you must be in accordance with the realities of the law of that creation. And again, that creation, if we think of it as a building, like a brick building, again, you put one brick on top of the other, you're only going to go so high, maybe 10 bricks high, and your building's going to fall over. But when you find out that, well, you stagger them, You put 2 bricks together, and then the next one you stagger it. You put it halfway. Then you find out that, hey, that building will hold together. You can build a whole building. That becomes the law. It's the natural law that forms out of the process of creation itself. How creation is built, that's the law of creation. And so that a person, if they are not conducive to it, you can even forfeit your name. Your name does not belong to you. You fit within this creation. You are given the unique opportunity to be in the big show, because this is the big show. As you know, when we utilize modern science today, they identify that just the protons or the electrons, I forget what it is, from the center of the sun. In order for it to work its way from the center of the sun just to the photosphere, just to leave, it takes over 400,000 years for one individual to leave from the center of the sun to get to the surface, where then it can then be released and travel throughout the our solar system. And so, as it is that way on the scale of the very small, which you see on the scale of the very big simultaneously. It's very small in on the protons or the electrons within the sun, compared to if you're looking at the sun, try to see a proton next to it. It's like looking at an ant next to the Milky Way galaxy. So you know that no matter what, even if you can't see it, that these things are reality. These are the things that make us up. And if we go outside of that reality, you will you will compromise yourself. And therefore, your name will be taken from you. You will never have that name. You will not have that clan. You will not have that life. If you were a molecule in the body and you chose to leave the body, you no longer have that life, no matter what you want to say or do or believe. And this is where, again, where the male dominance is leading us to imagine, to think that we're going to leave our Mother Earth. I say, good. Let all those people, all the people who want to do this, let's get them off the earth right now. Get off the earth really fast. Leave this earth. You have no place on this earth. If you believe that you can go somewhere else to live, then this means that you do not know how to live in this world. And if you don't know how to live in this world, you are the source. You are the impetus to the destruction of our Mother Earth. So everybody who has this belief, hurry up and get off of our Mother Earth. Get out of here. You're not welcome. You're not wanted here. You are the destruction. And when they leave, just like this hair on my forearm, I pull it out. While the hair is on my forearm, it has a life. It has a spirit. Pull it out. That hair will still have a spirit for a while, but it's disconnected from the body that gives it its spirit, that gives it its life. And so that hair on my forearm, when it leaves my forearm, it is basically, for all intents and purposes, it is dead. So let's get these people off of the earth very fast. Get the hell out of here. You got no place here. You are the destruction. So get out of here. Go to your Mars. Go to wherever you think, and you're going to see that life elsewhere for humans to live is an impossibility. You cannot live once you are out of the body. It is an impossibility. This is a fantasy that the corruption of male dominance is inflicting all our children's minds with. And that creates a mindset in the minds of the children that if you can leave here, that means, you know the reasons why they want to leave here, because they're destroying the place. So if you can just leave, that means you are not looking at stopping your behavior, much less looking at correcting the behavior. And so when our children are taught in schools that you can leave the earth, you are actually intrinsicating into their minds you are perpetuating a destructive mindset, a destructive mentality, that if they leave here with that destructive mentality, what do you think will happen when they get to our grandmother moon, when they get to Mars? The same mentality as when the non-native, the corrupted white European male-dominant warmongering mentality left Europe in 1492 under colonization, they said, new world over here, old world over there. What did they do? They brought their old ways to the new world, which means they brought the same thing that they were trying to escape from their old world. The same corruption, same poisons, same 1%, and you brought that over here. So that means that you did it once, you're going to do it again. You are a cancer. This mentality is a cancer, and it must be addressed. And I don't care if nobody else on the planet will address it. We are addressing it. Okay, so to continue, finish the whole wampum. You, the chiefs of the 5 United Nations, be firm, so that if a tree falls upon your joined hands, it shall not separate you or weaken your hold. So shall the strength of the Union, the authority of the women, the future generations, and our Mother Earth herself be preserved. Any chief who is or elects to leave his sacred duties within the great binding law of peace, in doing so, forsaking his sacred oath to the female heirs, shall never hold a title again. He shall never be in a position of influence, which means they cannot even sing the songs. In ceremony, that person is not allowed to sing the songs because that is a position of influence. They are not allowed to speak when the people are gathered, because when a person steps outside of law, it constitutes, as was said, they have alienated themselves. And when a person alienates themselves, there is a specific reference to them, is that the people no longer know their minds. And if you no longer know the minds of a person, will you allow them near your children? Will you allow them to babysit your children? Because while they're babysitting, they are teaching your children. And what they are teaching your children is corruption. Imagine that babysitter that was babysitting your little 9-year-old, and while they were there, they were showing them how to smoke. They were teaching them how to smoke, not by saying, hey, look, this is how you smoke, but just by merely smoking in front of them. They are teaching corruption. This is the way that the entire non-native world is. They teach corruption to their own children. And so this is not something that is acceptable or permissible within creation. Anything that is corrupted, if there was a corruption on that branch of that tree, you would see that that tree's natural process will eliminate that corruption. It will die and it will fall off. Okay, we're going into the next wampum. So if there is anything anybody has on that wampum, anything anybody wants to say, if not, we will continue. I need another drink. Okay, keep in mind we're still in official symbolism. Official symbolism is a huge section. Okay, a bunch of wampum strings, 3 spans of the hand in length. The upper half of the bunch being white and the lower half black, and formed from equal contributions of the women and men of the 5 nations. The white portion of the shell strings represents the women, and along with the chiefs of the 5 nations have established the great peace. The black portion, furthermore, is a token of power and authority vested in the people of the 5 nations. Which means at any time, well, just to identify, 3 strands, 3 spans of the hand in length. As you know, it says the top half is white, top half, bottom half is black. You know that this stems from within the creation story when when the wolf and bear, Karunyawagu and Suskura, as the hands of Yunkiat Dizu, had created all things within creation. And so, as it is that you may see 6, but there is only 3, because each one has the duality within it. And so this is the purpose for the 3 strands, is to identify that within those 3 elements, which is again, what the rest of the world knows as protons, neutrons, and electrons, which means absolutely nothing but what we know as turtle, wolf, and bear, which carries great meaning in this world. That with that we know we find the duality in there, and so 3 is actually 6. So we get into, you can find a sacred arithmetic here, where you think 1 and 1 is 2, but it isn't. 1 and 1 is 3. And 3 is not just 3. 3 is actually 6. So there is a lot of, again, you'll see throughout creation, of course, there is a correlation between all things based on an amount of elements. You might say then, or extrapolate this to being what a lot of people put a lot of importance in numerology. Now, numerology is not the thing. It's just that creation is there, and yes, there's numbers to that. So numerology is not the thing. Creation is the thing. Numerology is just something that, well, you can see patterns. There's a pattern. Oh, look, it's in numbers. But those numbers change. They are not always the same. This string of wampum vests the people with the right to correct their erring chiefs. In case a part or all the chiefs pursue a course not sanctioned by the people, and heeds not the third warning of their woman relatives, then the matter shall be taken to the general council of the women of the 5 nations. If the chiefs notified and warned 3 times fail to heed the warning, then the case falls into the hands of the men of the 5 nations. The war chief shall then, by right of such power and authority, enter the open council to warn the chief or chiefs to return from their wrong course. If the chiefs heed the warning, they shall say, "We will reply tomorrow." If then an answer is returned in favor of justice and in accord with the great law, then the chiefs shall individually repledge themselves again by furnishing the necessary shells for the pledge. Then shall the war chief or chiefs exhort the chiefs, urging to be just and true. If a third instance, such as this, should occur, the person shall be removed from their position, for such a reoccurring circumstance constitutes not knowing the person's mind. Should it happen that the chiefs refuse to heed the third warning, then 2 courses are open. Either the men may decide in their council to depose the chief or chiefs, or in an extreme case of treason, banish or even execute them. Should they, in their council, decide to take the first course, the war chief shall address the chief or chiefs and say, "Since you, the chiefs of the 5 nations, have refused to turn to the procedure of the Constitution, we now declare your seats vacant. We take off your deer antlers, the token of your chieftainship title, and others shall be chosen and installed in your seats. Therefore, vacate your seats and go from this territory, for we know not your mind." Should the men in their council adopt the second course, the war chief shall order his men to enter the council, to take positions beside the errant chief, sitting between them wherever possible. When this is accomplished, the war chief, holding in his outstretched hand a bunch of black wampum string, shall say to the erring chief. So now, chiefs of the 5 nations, hearken to these last words from your men. You have not heeded the warnings of the General Council of Women, and you have not heeded the warnings of the men of the nations, all urging you to the right course of action. Since you are determined to resist and to withhold justice from your people, there is only one course for us to adopt. At this point, the war chief shall let drop the bunch of black wampum, and the men shall spring to their feet and execute the erring chiefs. Any erring chief may submit before the war chief lets fall the black wampum. Then his execution is withheld. The black wampum here used symbolizes that the power to execute is buried, but the men may rise it up again. It is authority from the wampum to act as herein described under the authority of the women. The men can only pull that wampum up under the authority of the women because it goes through a process first through the women's council. The women's council determined. There is 3 warnings given. That man does not heed the warnings from the women's council. Then the actions are not that the people decide, it's that person decides through their own action what course will be taken upon them. And of course, we're talking about varying degrees of offense here. Now, if it is not a serious offense, then they may just be banished. But a chief who this would happen to, no matter what, they are not remaining in the territory. A chief that would do so, we know not their minds, and their influence could be of such that would cause great division within the entire Confederacy. And so, when this is the circumstance, that chief is no longer permitted to remain within the woman's house. The women cannot trust him. The women cannot get gratification from him in relation to his title, that he is not within law. So as long as this happens with the women, we understand we're in the woman's house. The man is not adhering to the rules, then that man expels himself from the woman's house. And how it is done is through the sons of the mothers. And this is when, depending on the degree of violation, he may be expelled, or to the worst degree of treason, that person, just like every country on earth, has and can subject themselves to execution. Because treason, if you understand the word, you understand what it means, it is not a simple offense of like a traffic violation. It is of the most severe, where it affects the faces yet beneath the earth, where it causes chaos within the current, and it causes dishonor to our ancestry. And so as long as people keep these in their minds as the impetus to all their actions, to honor your ancestry for the faces yet beneath the earth, that person will be centered. That person will be living what is identified as a good life. And a person who is doing so, they have nothing to fear of any kind of retribution from anybody in relation to law. You only have the beauty that creation has to offer us. And it is massive. You can imagine right now that you have a beautiful life, you go on vacation, whatever. Now imagine if this life gives you all the knowledge of creation, how much better your life is, how much more purpose and understanding that you have. So the individual, again, will determine, it's up to you, how far you want to go, how far you want to evolve in this life. Okay, on that wampum, if there's anything that anybody needs to say or wants to address, oh, we're still not finished that wampum. I'll finish it. So now, the war chief continues to say, so now, chiefs of the 5 nations. Oh, wait, I already said this. Okay, I already said that. Yeah, we are finished the wampum. Okay, if there's anything anybody's got on this wampum, if not, we'll continue. Is it getting hungry out here, or is it just me? It got hungry out here. What time is it? Is it too early for lunch? Let's see. Wait, hang on. Okay, we'll go to laws of adoption. We'll go to laws of adoption. We still got about, let's see. Still got about 5 or 6 more wampums. Okay, a broad belt of wampum of 38 rows, having a white heart in the center, on either side of which are 2 white squares, all connected with the heart by white rows of beads, shall be the emblem of the unity of the 5 nations. The first of the squares on the left represents the Mohawks, the Kanyangahaga. The second square on the left and near to the heart represents the Oneida and its territory. The white heart in the middle represents the Onondaga Nation and its territory. And it also means that the heart of the 5 nations is single in its loyalty to the great law of peace, and that the great peace is lodged in the heart, meaning with the Onondaga chiefs, and that the council fire is to burn there for the 5 nations. And further, it means that the authority is given to advance the cause of peace, whereby hostile nations outside of the Confederacy shall cease warfare. The white square to the right of the heart represents the Cayuga Nation and its territory. And the fourth and last square on the right represents the Seneca Nation and its territory. This shall be known as the Hiawatha Wampum Belt. What you know there, what you see there, this is, of course, was created, as you know, from what was identified the other day in the formation of the League. You know what Hiawatha had to sacrifice, what he had to go through to take us from the brink of destruction, of commodification, and bring us back into the heart and love of our mother, where it is not commodification, where it is human interaction, where it is trade based on love. And so it was he that bred the life, the breath into the Onagordo, that gave it life, that gives it reality. And all the peoples here know, regardless of what anybody thinks, doesn't matter what any non-native thinks about what that is. They'll look at wampum and they'll say, oh, it's beads or whatever. Doesn't matter. All the people know that this is a living, breathing thing. And as you know, that in this world, this is the only symbol of peace. We asked this when the kids were here, the schools come here. Ask them, what is the symbol of peace in this world? Right now, any of you, what is the symbol of peace that you know? Symbol of peace. Like this? That's what everybody thinks is the symbol of peace. That's not true. This is the symbol of division. It shows you right there. It's division. It's not peace. This has never established peace anywhere on the planet. This has established peace over 2,000 years ago and maintained it for that entire time. There is nothing else, no other symbol on the planet that has established peace. Now, we know that what they call relative peace is you war upon somebody else until you defeat them, and then they say you got peace after that by defeating your enemy. Of course, that is not peace, that's war. And you cannot attain peace through war. It's an oxymoron for anybody to imagine that. So what you do know then, as a result of these conditions, is that the world is full of stupid people. They're called soldiers. They're called generals. Full of stupid people that keep the world locked in a perpetual state of non-stop war. And when you're in war, you're in commodification. Okay, so this is the symbolism that was created by Hiawatha as it's identified. This is the symbol of the people of the Longhouse. And as you know, it was identified that the people are never to accept anything foreign. The chiefs are not to accept anything other than the great law of peace. Now, people across so-called Confederacy territory, they don't use this as their symbol. What is the symbol that they use? What do you know? That warrior society symbol. That is exactly that, war. Now, knowing that we evolved out of war, to attain peace, which is matrilineal authority, where our mothers are in control. Who's in control in war? Are the mothers in control? The male is. So this is where the corruption is now. It stemmed from here in Ganawagi. That corruption of warrior symbol, of warrior society started here in 1973, divided the people, spread like wildfire throughout the Confederacy, has everybody locked under a devolved state of our humanity, because we evolved out of war into peace, and now everybody has devolved back. So to be under warrior society symbol is to be a devolved human, not even a human, a devolved being. And this stupidity has spread from here in Ganawagi to the rest of the Confederacy, has spread to everybody else on Turtle Island. All our sisters and brothers who are standing to protect and defend, they all use that corruption of that warrior symbol. They do not know what they are using, because they do not know where it comes from, and they do not know that to have that is to go against our own law. And so all people of the world are seeing a corrupted symbol, which is not this. They do not see this. When the Ganyangahaga or anybody of the Great Peace stands, we do not cover our face. We do not hide who we are. We stand not behind a war symbol. We stand in front of the peace symbol to not allow anything to destroy it. There is a very big difference here as to the corruptions that has spread to all other peoples, and what is truly the true identity of not just the Ganyangahaga, but what was once the true identity of all the united people of the five nations. And so now, like we said, now you see the Wet'suwet'ens, the Supremic people, complaining about the pipeline that was going through, and they use a warrior symbol. The moment they use the warrior symbol, the government that they're fighting against or claim to be fighting against knows that they are already subdued, because the so-called Canadian government during the summer of 90 subdued that anybody that fell under warrior society were all subdued. They all surrendered. And so anybody who uses that symbol now today, they think they're standing there with power. That government they're fighting against knows, you're a stupid fool. You don't amount to anything. They don't know what they're doing. Okay, if there's anything to be said on that, if not, we'll continue. I didn't finish that one. There's a small paragraph. White, the white in the belt. Of course, this is a blanket, but you know the belt is just like this. White shall hereby symbolize that no evil nor jealous thought. Clearly, this has been our symbol for over 2,000 years, for over 1,500 years before the non-native came here, which is why you can see that you can look at history and you may wonder, why did we not wipe out the non-native people that came here? Why didn't we? We should have. And when you're looking back now, you know that the right thing for us to have done would be to not permit them to continue to live here in this polarity. That would have been the right thing, to remove them. Because the fact is your ancestry that came here, it was not women that came here. You sent pirates here. And we should have dealt with those pirates the way that pirates should be dealt with. Why didn't we? How come we did not kill those pirates? Does anybody know? Just from what was just read off. Why? You just didn't pay attention. You just didn't pay attention. What was just said? What does white symbolize?
Peace, love, charity, and equity.
So we seen what we've always known, what white represents. We seen the white man. And we thought that here is the man that represents peace. all of those good things. But we did not know. We just did not know that they sent a bunch of corrupt, lying, thieving, raping, murdering pirates. We did not know that. And this is the reason why we allowed them to live. We were at the flashpoint of cancer. We could have stopped cancer. We just did not know it was cancer. Which brings us to where we are now. And you know now, as was said, that last year we determined it was ridiculous of us to continue to stay locked into our word. Why should we continue to stay locked into our word as to what the Degene Diohade states? Why should we be locked into conducting ourselves good in relation to you? Why you do not do that? Because you, through your representation, represents only lies and corruption in this world, the destruction of all creation. So why should we continue to stay locked into a binding word that we created over almost 400 years ago now? Why do we stay locked into it? We had determined that it's ridiculous. For us to have the two row wampum, it's ridiculous because we got to tell the truth while your society just keeps lying. That's an imbalanced contract. So what we identified is that meant that that's here before you sent any women over here. So that meant what you sent was war. You sent war here. This is your diplomacy. Your diplomacy in the non-native world, especially coming from the white, non-native, male-dominant European human experiment, you sent war to us. You did not knock out our door and say, hey, is anybody home? Can we come and visit? What you did was you sent bombs, you sent maniacs. You had no clue because within Guyana Saragoa, you can't even adjust. Two real wampum is a true reality within creation because it is a derivative of the double helix of DNA itself, murdering, warmongering pieces of crap. That's what they are because this is all that they do in the world. And so we identify that we cannot present a contract to somebody that doesn't represent you because we know that in your own societies, those men do not represent you, that those men have oppressed, raped, murdered you for thousands of years. So they obviously are not even of you. They are like they are alien of you. They are a power that grows. They are something that grew from you. You gave them birth, but they are an abomination in the world. And so they cannot represent you, the true identity of the peoples of Europe, or so-called Europe. The only thing that can represent that is the women. And so this is the reason why we are here, to identify that Turo Wampum was presented to the wrong place, given to the true representation of the non-native people, which is the women. Hence, what we are doing here in this law recital is to share the knowledge of the Guyana Saragoa so that on that side of the double helix, we'll use that ladder again just as a symbol, so give me a second. As the Degene Diohade is a derivative of the two-row wampum, this symbolizes the. Did I just say Degene Diohade, symbol of the two-row wampum? Symbol, a derivative of the double helix of DNA. This being a symbol of the double helix of DNA, you know there are the two strands, and you know that they communicate between each other. This in the middle here, these rungs, this is a communication, and the communication between each other in the public arena is what makes your words true. What makes your words true becomes reality. And so the discussion, the communication between the double helix of DNA, if it is a good, solid, truthful communication, it would be a solid reality. But if it is based on lies, Just like, let's say, a relationship between a woman and a man. Based on lies, you get together for who knows how long it's going to last until those lies actually are the cause that will tear you apart. So if you're built on lies, you're going to fall apart no matter what. Eventually, I don't care how long you think you are in existence, you will fall apart. And so the two-row wampum, the communication between the two is a reality in creation. It begins, it is initiated from one place to the other. And we know that through the council process, we know where all things are initiated. It is initiated from within the hearts of our mothers. And so the Degani Diohade must be presented to the women that truly represent on the other side of the great waters. If it is not presented to the women, if the women are not able to receive this, then what is going to happen to our Mother Earth is already laid in stone then. It will not change. But if the women are able to receive the Deganidiohade, which means on your side, to be built up to receive the message, which is the purpose, the reason why we are in law recital, so that the women who are the true representatives of your society, of your bloodline, that you can be built up to be able to receive the two-row wampum once again, and where we can get on with our business, the business of creation, the business of love, the business of what this world is about, what it's here for. Imagine all the universe is what's necessary to create this little beautiful place that we're in, and all we can do is war, destroy it. Very sick minds. This is your sons. Your sons carry very sick minds. And so we speak to the mothers that you must correct your sons. And if you cannot correct your sons and you know that your sons are sick, then there is a reality that is going to befall them. And this is something that you must deal with. You women, whose bloodlines that come from across the great waters, must deal with your corrupt sons. You must bring your truth back into this world. Ask yourself, is your truth war? Is your truth commodification? Is your truth division of people, classes of people? Is that your truth? Is your truth everything the way that it exists today? Is this your truth as a life giver? If this is your truth as a life giver, then you are not a life giver. You are subdued. So you must determine what is your truth. If your truth is love, if your truth is life and getting on with the business of love and life, then you will have a place. You will fill your role of the Deganidiohade. You will be able to receive this once again, and the communication of the great buffalo between us will rise again. And that communication between the continents that used to be here since the beginning of time up until that pirate stepped foot on our land, which is the reason why he went immediately and killed that buffalo. Because the great communication of the great buffalo is what established the great peace, the balance on our Mother Earth. There is a chaos that came out from this. And that chaos is your sons. Your sons that raped and murdered you soon as they got the corruption of this male-dominant mentality of religification. The male self-glorification process of creating God in man's image is the impetus to your destruction, to your oppression, and to the destruction and war all over our Mother Earth. It is rooted in that male dominance of the male self-glorification process of creating God in man's image. When man's creator is you, is the woman. You are what created man. Not God created Adam and then as an afterthought created you to keep Adam company. If anything, Adam, man, is the afterthought. But we are not an afterthought. We are the design of love that flows out of the heart of Sky Woman. Love designs all things. And even though it did not exist before, just like you know that before you were in love, whatever, the world was a certain way. Once you're in love, you know that that love creates a new reality for you. That's why one and one is not two. One and one is three. It creates a new reality. And so your love, the women of this world, must be brought back, and it must be the guiding principle, the impetus to all things that you do, every decision that you make, even from the shoes that you wear to the way that you look. If you wear makeup, don't wear makeup. Number one thing, don't wear makeup. Why would anybody put shit on their face? These are the corruptions that the male has forced upon you. Even, again, your high heels. Women did not come up with the idea of high heels. You know that. This is a male dominance that today, again, women who are trying to bust through that glass ceiling in the corporate world or the political world, they dress as a man. They wear that man's suit and they wear not the man's shoes, but they wear the high heels. All a creation of that man, corrupting you, puts you at a different level. Why do women wear high heels? To make themselves appear taller. What's the difference with high heels or a bandana covering my face? Is there a difference? It is a lie. Both of them are a lie. Both of them is so that you can deceive others. There is no difference. And so we do not wear disguise. We never disguise ourselves, because if you do, the true you which your mother created will not be. You will be altered. And therefore your voice will not be heard, because the only way your voice will be heard is coming from the true you. Okay, anyways, if there's anything on that, if not, we'll continue. Get rid of this lighter. Okay, next wampum. 60. Yeah, nuance. Should a great calamity threaten the generations rising and living of the 5 United Nations, then who is ever able to climb to the top of the tree, Jonadat Gazet Goa, may do so. They are as the mighty eagle. When they reach the top of the tree, they shall look about in all directions, and should they see evil things indeed are approaching, they shall call to the people of the 5 United Nations assembled beneath the tree of the great peace, and say, a calamity threatens your happiness. Then shall the chiefs convene in council and discuss the impending evil. When all the truths relating to the trouble shall be fully known and found to be truths, then shall the people seek a tree of Gahunkaguhna and the great compound, and shall assemble their heads together and lodge for a time between its roots. Then their labors being finished, they may aspire for happiness for many days after. This may sound to you like, okay, this is like mysticism or some kind of fairy tale or whatever. Hey, a great calamity is approaching. What do? You go lodge your heads together in the roots of the great swamp elm. How do you do that? What is that? Great calamity's coming, and we go put our heads. It's kind of like the equivalent of what you would hear of like an ostrich burying its head in the sand. No, this isn't. When we know that the great swamp elm, we think back. Even modern science identifies we came out of the water. We know we came out of the water. We're made of water. But we know that to come from water into solid matter, that there is a process. You're not going to be water and then just solid. You know, there's going to be murky stuff. It's going to become slowly muddy and a little bit, maybe pebbles in there, making it a little bit solid mass until you get stone and solid ground. There's going to be a transition from water into solid mass. The transition is where the great swamp elm is. Great swamp elm. The great swamp elm, its roots are a medicine because it's rooted in the swamp where there's not really anything solid, but its roots are such a complex root system, so rooted into that murky stuff that right in the middle of the swamp, this great big giant tree, even under tornado force winds, that tree will still stay standing because there is a power there, just like as which was identified, the power that is in the beaver's tail, that is intrinsic to it. There is a power intrinsic to the roots of that tree. And as you recall, as Gerdo identified, that when we're talking about the human body in the language, everything is in relation to the tree. So when you go back to the roots of the great swamp elm, you're going to where we crawled out of the water. Where we, in the amniotic fluid of our mother, when you are in the womb of your mother being created, you are being created out of water. Today, science, the corruption of male dominant science tells you you are approximately 74% water. It is a lie. Because in the belly of your mother, when Sky Woman falls from the sky world, when that egg falls from the ovary down the fallopian tube, lands in the uterus, 5 days out of time, if those 5 days out of time, if the egg is fertilized, then magically, the uterus turns to a womb. Something that wasn't before now is. In order to take from one realm, where do we come from? The realm of the very small. We don't even exist. Our mother pulls us through the portal, pulls us into this world where we can grow here, where it is safe in her womb. And there in her womb, that this is where the amniotic fluid of our mother, the great water verse of Sky Woman herself, that this is what forms us. We are created out of this. There is not a body or a mass in the womb of your mother where bones come from, where it's, hey, there's a bunch of bones laying there. Let's put them together, put some flesh on there. No. Mass, bones, eyeballs, brains, everything. Heart, all internal organs, all are made of water. So the corruption of non-native science puts a lie into your head, as it does in all things, of that you're made of 74% water. Oh yeah? What's the other 26% of us made of then? What is it? What are we made out of? Are we made of some kind of material that we don't know, that we can't detect? Of course not. We're 100% water. So within that reality of being 100% water, we know that to come into physical mass, that there is that transition, which even science identifies that, well, it started in the ocean life and we crawled out of the ocean. Well, there is that transition there of where we started to become solid matter, just as when our mother began to put us together in her womb. It is her design. Our mothers did not have to think about, okay, I'm going to make the heart grow. Okay, now little lungs. The mother doesn't have to think this. It is her design. She carries the design. The blueprint of creation is within her. It's something you never have to think of, women. Women, I mean, you never have to think of this. But men are created different. We are created out of you. You are the design. You are the completeness. And this will take us to that corruption of which every woman here has heard. And you never have thought about it before, of this corruption. Guarantee you, well, the one that's newest here amongst us, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Mello? You must have heard in women of hormonal imbalance, right? This comes from the corruption of the male dominant medical industry. There's no such thing as an imbalance within the woman. When the male is talking about the hormonal imbalance, it's because of, again, that the medical industry, which is male dominant, started with some guy. And you know what the corruptions were, is they started cutting open the human body, which is not to be done. You are not to do this. It is a desecration. But today, it's become acceptable. Well, you can cut yourself open and put somebody else's lung or liver inside of you. You can do that in your corruption. It does not make it right. Anyways, out of that corruption of the male cutting open, he first examined his own body, and he seen, well, the way he is. And then when he looked at the woman's body, he sees that you're not the same. And so he identified a hormonal imbalance, because that doesn't happen in the male. So the woman, if it happens in her, well, it's an imbalance from the male perspective, from the male dominant perspective. But when they're referring to that hormonal imbalance, you know that they are talking about the woman's reproductive system. So imagine, we are born from the woman's reproductive system, and the male calls it an hormonal imbalance. That is not the imbalance. The imbalance is the male. So do not ever again allow, when you hear reference of hormonal imbalance, slap that man's face. If it's a doctor you're seeing, slap their face and tell them to wake up to reality. And you say, oh, you mean the hormonal balance of the woman's reproductive system that gave you birth, that brought you into this world? And you tell them the imbalance is in your mind. To call that, to refer to it as an imbalance. And so we know that within that process, it is complete balance. The woman is the design. She carries the balance into creation. Male is made out of that. So figure this out. There's 100%. You are 100%. I am made of you. Can I be 100% after that? Impossible. You are the 100%. Therefore, I am the one that has the imbalance. And it's not a hormonal imbalance. It's a thinking imbalance. And the thinking is a matter of coming to terms that, what? We're not the primary? You mean it's not all about us? That's what the male has to come to terms with. This is the imbalance in the male mind, is to not acknowledge the primary, that we are quite simply the secondary, that the primary is the source, the impetus, is the design. And so the mothers carry that design complete within them. And so when that design is being put together, at its root, when we come from water, we will see first, the very first thing that starts to grow is our roots. And this is the reason why we lodge our minds together for a while at the base of the roots of the great swamp elm. We return when there is a great calamity that is where we are today, a great chaos that you cannot make heads or tails of, that you don't know what to do. In that time of great calamity, you return back to your source. You return back to the design that Sky Woman has provided for creation to be. And you return to that source and you will find the answer. You will find the solution. This is the reason why it's identified that when great calamity, that the chiefs shall lodge their heads at the base of the roots of the great swamp elm. And to identify that anybody, should any person see that there is danger approaching, they have the right to climb to the top of Jonadut Go, the great white pine. And when they reach the top, when they look in all directions, they see and danger is indeed approaching, that person must yell to all creation. They are as the mighty eagle. They carry the power of Ogwats. Anything on that? If not, we'll continue. Okay. Should two sons of opposite sides of the council fire agree in a desire to hear the reciting of the laws of the Great Peace, and so refresh their memories in a way established by the founder of the Confederacy, they shall notify Tadadaho. He shall consult with 5 of his co-active chiefs, and they in turn shall consult their 8 brethren. Then, upon sanctioning the request of the two sons from the opposite sides of the council fire, Taradaho shall send messengers to notify their brother and cousin chiefs of the meeting and its time and place. Unless there is legitimate reason of national or international importance or reason within law, the chiefs must comply with the request to have a law recital. If there is no request from any member of the Five Nations Confederacy to have a law recital, the chiefs must call for a recital of this law at least every 5 years. When all have come and have assembled, Taradaho, in conjunction with his cousin chiefs, shall appoint one chief who shall recite the laws of the Great Peace. All chiefs or their sub-chiefs and clan mothers must be present at such a monumental event. This is where it'd be at standing attention for this. And so this is the reason why that at the law recital, all chiefs and their clan mothers must be, they are not longhouse. Plain and simple as that. And they cannot carry out a cheap rendition or a cheap imitation. It's got to be law recital. What law recital means is that as far as we were evolved 2,000 years ago, when we pulled our heads out of our rear ends, out of the darkness of war, the dark ages, we, from one day killing each other to the next, under the authority of our mothers, under the authority of the women, this was the greatest single advancement in all human evolution on the planet. There is no other nation, no other peoples who have evolved to this level. No others, anywhere on the planet. It was only here in the northeastern woodlands of Turtle Island. To do this signifies, like if you're 1 year old, next year you're going to be 2. You're not going to go from 10 years old back to 1. You're going to be 11 the next year. So, from that time of where we pulled ourselves out of the dark ages and climbed up the evolutionary ladder to join the women, it was only from that point that the women and men jointly could evolve. Before that, the women, you were at our mercy. Just as you, in your societies, the non-native society, you are at the mercy of corrupt warmongering mentality. No matter what kind of peace or what kind of freedom or what you think, no matter what, you are subjected to a devolved state of being. And so, for us, what law recital means is that from where we were 2,000 years ago, 5 years later, we come back for a law recital. Well, you know what? We were what we were 2,000 years ago, but we were also everything that we learned within that 5 years. So the law recital is human evolution. It's what we know up until this moment. And you cannot go from what we know up until this moment, where we were at 2,000 years ago, and then digress to go back to time of war, like where everybody's under warrior society, and expect to have law recital. You cannot, because it is a paradox to think that you can. One cannot exist while the other is there. Great law of peace cannot exist where war is. Warrior society cannot exist where peace is. So warrior society must eradicate great law of peace in order for it to exist. Which warrior society, again, is nothing but a mafia, special interest group, same thing as the non-native world. They are democracy, which is schizophrenic, male-dominant, warmongering mentality. Okay, anything on that? If not, we'll continue. Oh, okay. As was said, if two nephews from either side of the fire determine that there must be a law recital, you got to ask yourself, why does it say two nephews? Why not two nieces? Why not if the women request it? Law is not yours. Law is for us, because men, not being complete, not being that 100% of what you are, we are at a disadvantage to enable us to be able to pull our heads out of our own rear ends and to climb up the evolutionary ladder to where the women are at. And so law is not for you. Law is for us. Once we are in this world, yes, then you are subjected to law because you created us. If you created us, you're subjected to what you created. You bake a cake, your intent is to eat it. So you're then subjected to if you're a good cook or not. So if you're a good cook, you're subjected to the goodness that flows through you. But if you're a terrible cook, you're subjected to terrible cooking. You're going to eat lousy. And that is the result or the circumstances of today. You created something that you must have been lousy cooks because you created men that in turn raped you and just oppressed you and murdered you. You must have been lousy cooks. You got to go back to your drawing board, go back to your recipe, and start your recipe over again. That's what you got to do. When you can hear my compliments to the chef, then you will know that you are good cooks. So when you bring your love, you let your love flow, and you create your sons, you'll be good cooks once again. You'll be able to feed your children. And so, anyways, this is the reason why it says 2 sons, why it doesn't say two daughters. You don't need law. The only time you need law is once we're here. You don't have us, women got no problem. And remember, where creation comes from, it is auto creation. Women created creation. Our mother, the design is in her. You do not need us. You can get by without us. So in order for us to be, we have to be in accordance with the law of your creation. Otherwise, we just don't fit into your house. Okay, when the Council of the Five Nations has declared for a reading of the belts of shell, calling to mind these laws, they shall provide for the reader a specially made mat woven of the fibers of wild hemp. The mat shall not be used again, for such formality is called the honoring of the importance. Ate too much hamburgers. The honor of the importance of the law. At the end of the reading, the mat shall be burned in the council fire. That's pretty simple. Now think of this. What is that mat of wild hemp? What is that? You know what that is, wild hemp. That's what today everybody is so up in arms about because of commodification. Hemp or marijuana, whatever you want to call it, is a natural medicine that was given to the people that performs a duty and a function within creation, and it performs a duty and a function within the society. The women are the ones that would prescribe that medicine. And they would know by their sons, by the women keeping a tightly knit nation, tightly knit community, one of your daughters would say, hey, this guy did this to me. You know how the way things are. Men are out of balance, might be a little too angry or a little too aggressive or too, anyways, predominant or too dominant upon the female. And that young girl, first time she's coming into contact with a male on those levels, she should not be exposed to that. She would notify her clan mother. Notify first her mother. If it's not her clan mother, then her mother would notify the clan mother. And that clan mother would notify the clan mother of the clan that that male is in. And that clan mother would admonish her son for acting in such a way. And when she sees that he continues, if he continues, then she prescribes that medicine to him to calm him down, to bring him into order. This medicine carries a power that is directly linked to your mind. Direct. It is directly linked to your mind to heal you, to bring your mind into balance, Because as the human mind, the male mind is too erratic and too crazy, too chaotic, this is the medicine that will bring it into order, which is why you know that in your society, if you're not aware of this, don't believe me, find this out for yourself. Who made marijuana illegal in the non-native world? Do you know? Anybody? The army. Army made marijuana illegal. Now think of that. Why? Imagine if those men in the army were prescribed that medicine. You know what happens? The chaos in their mind, physically, the physiology of their brain is affected. It is adjusted. To have that chaos calm down, and to where that mind then is in a state of being able to receive proper communication. This is the reason why in your world, marijuana was made illegal by the army, by killers, murderers, made it illegal because they knew that if other young boys had this, they would not be murderers and killers. They would be lovers. They would be listening to their women, to their mothers. They would be builders, workers for their mothers. They will be life protectors. But the medicine, you have allowed it to be destroyed, to be bastardized. You allowed a man to corrupt your medicine. And this is, let's go all the way with this. Your medicine being love, yes, you have allowed a man to corrupt your medicine. And so this is where one of these medicines that are like all the medicines in creation, they're for you to utilize, to bring your sons into balance. All of this medicine grew out of our mother. It is female. It is direct link to you. You have access to these medicines to keep your men in order. You do not use your medicine. You allowed the man to corrupt your medicines. You allowed the man to corrupt your only medicine that you are in control of, that you really truly have, your heart, your love. And if your love is corrupted, your knowledge of all medicines, your access to all medicines is corrupted. You do not know any longer what those medicines are for or how to apply it, how to use it. This is the reason why, anyways, why the mat of hemp, wild hemp, is utilized for that person who's doing the recital of the law, that they would sit upon that, and at the end, it's put on the fire. Right where we're all gathered. What would that mean? Think of that. You burn it right there on the fire, right where we're all gathered. What's going to happen to it? The smoke is going to go everywhere, all around. And this is at the end of the recital. Not in the recital, at the end. Because all that you have heard must be absorbed. In the chaotic mind, the chaos prevents knowledge or things from being absorbed. It will be absorbed, but solely into your subconscious. If it's into your subconscious and then it's left to you to receive the messages from your subconscious in dreams and visions, most likely you're not going to believe it. You're not going to go on it, because how many people today go on, base their day based on the dream that they had? Nobody knows how to interpret their dreams anymore. How to know how to be guided by it. Nobody even knows that that dream is coming from their subconscious. And whatever you're going to do or see today, that your subconscious is going to record it all. If you left here right now, you're going to remember a few things. You're going to remember there's a fire there. You're going to remember there was some people there. But your subconscious is going to have a digital photograph of it. And therefore, you'll be able to examine all of it through your subconscious. But if your subconscious is being blocked by the chaos in your mind, in the male dominant mind, the erraticness, the stupidity in his mind, even if he sat through a law recital, he's not going to be able to make heads or tails of it. He's not going to know how to connect it, how to put it together, what it all means, and how we're supposed to pattern our lives after this. Hence, at the end, the medicine is put on the fire to calm down the craziness in those people's minds who are crazy, which is mainly the men, calm them down, and then all of those laws, what they just heard recited, will be able to flow into their mind. It will not only be on the subconscious level, it will be on the conscious level. And if it is on the conscious level, then you will consciously be able to utilize it, exercise it, apply it. And this is how it gets not just the majority of it to our subconscious, this is how it gets to our conscious level. Okay, we'll continue. At the ceremony of the installation of chiefs, if there is only one speaker and singer of the law and the pacification song to stand at the council fire, then when this speaker has finished addressing one side of the fire, he shall go to the opposite side and reply to his own speech and song. He shall thus act for both sides of the fire until the entire ceremony has been completed. Such a speaker and singer shall be termed the two-faced, because he speaks and sings for both sides of the fire. This shall apply to all other functions in law of the council. You heard this before, two-face. In the non-native world, two-face means something else. Of course, non-native world uses it in a corrupted way, and it identifies the corruption of that somebody is not two-faced, they're actually schizophrenic. But what two-face is not schizophrenic, because the person is not acting two-faced, like 1 minute they're this, the next they're that. Two-face is to cross the fire. Again, on the council level, we're talking about turtle, wolf, and bear. Where else does turtle, wolf, and bear bring us to? Anybody? Neutrons, protons, and electrons. Brings us to the realm of the very small. So when we're talking about the council level, you're always automatically thinking about the level of the very small. The same thing on the level of the very big. So when you're considering this, that from, let's say it's just the wolf clan, easy example here, as I'm a wolf. Okay, if there's just the wolf clan left, I can exist on my own until I die. But I'm supposed to be a part of life. I'm supposed to be conducive to life. I'm supposed to assist life. So, if there's nobody on the other side, that means, let's say, electron or whatever, it's by itself. There's only the protons and the neutrons are gone. In order for physical matter to exist, well, we have to build back the protons and the neutrons. So, the wolf clan, if they're the only one, I could stand here, and why do I have to cross the fire? I could just stand here and by myself anyways and say, well, I'm going to do this. Whatever. I determine what my policy is on any given thing in my own head. Okay, that's fine. But I'm thinking on the level of protons, neutrons, and electrons. That if two of them are gone, the one cannot exist on its own. And if it does not exist on its own, then physical matter cannot exist. And so, the purpose of Two-Face is to go representing creation right on the very levels of the foundation of creation. So, I'm here by myself. I have to make it exist. I have to physically go to the other side and carry out the process of what protons, neutrons, and electrons do. I got to do the proton, I got to do the electron, I got to do the neutron. I got to do the wolf, I got to do the bear, I got to do the turtle. I got to initiate, I got to deliberate, and then I got to determine if the deliberations were within order or if there was any erroneous decision. So it's not about being two-faced in the level of what today's society thinks. Again, two-faced is a schizophrenic behavior. Two-faced here is to actually represent the opposite, where schizophrenia does not do that. Two-Face on that level does not do that. Does the opposite. So the purpose of Two-Face is to represent the opposite. When the opposite is gone, what does this mean? Let's say a woman and a man. Okay, for the man, the woman maybe she's gone do something. The man is here alone, and then he's got to. While he's alone, you could imagine whatever he's doing, whatever he has to, in order to be in balance, he has to play Two-Face. While you are gone, while you're not there, I must be Two-Face. I must consider you when you're not there in order for me to stay in balance here. Because if you're not there, you cannot keep me in balance. And you know the male must be kept in balance. I know what I can do. It's not something that I have to imagine. I know the damage and the destruction I can cause in this world. So I know that I must always be restrained by my mother's power. And the only way to do that is for me to fill the role of Two-Face. For me to always think of my mother first. If I think of my mother, and then if I'm in the scenario of being with a woman and she's away for the weekend, I think of my mother, I am thinking properly in accordance with the woman, if it's my wife or my girlfriend or whatever, then I am thinking proper. I will be in balance for her when she is not there. This is the purpose of Two-Face. Okay, if there's anything on this, if not, we're going to break for lunch now. Okay, here we go. Oh.
Before everyone go